the dairy farmers, egg farmers of Canada, grain growers, Canal Council, all support our plan to fight climate change. It's time for the Conservative Party.
Every day here in Canada, there's just so much going on. Welcome back to Moose and Loose. My name's David. Today's top stories, we've got a Liberal MP just completely popping his top in committee. He's dropping multiple swears, F-bomb, the whole thing. He has a complete meltdown. We've got an update here. BC NDP, they've been caught. Some dirty dealings going on, buying and selling hotels, letting a bandit make off with millions of taxpayers' dollars. We've got Ottawa dropping their EV buses, going back to diesel. We've got a bit of a pissing match happening in the House of Commons over the carbon tax. Stephen Guilbeault is just doubling, quadrupling down on his lies and nonsense. So let's jump into it. First off, we got Christia Freeland here. This clip is an absolute disaster. She's talking about a couple who are a first-time home buyer using their home savings account to get that first home.
Faten Saloom and Samer Ghazi. Faten is a civil engineer. She works at East Harbour, and she is building a train station for us. So thank you very much for that, Faten. And I also want to thank Samer Ghazi. Samer just got his PhD in stem cell transplantation, and he works at Princess Margaret Hospital.
Let me get this straight here. So a civil engineer and a stem cell PhD scientist are just getting they're getting into the housing market. First time home buyers. This is what it takes in Canada. Just listen to this.
So I really and it was really a pleasure for me to see the beautiful home you live in with your three wonderful daughters. Faten and Samer used a first home savings account to save up some money to buy their very first home. And they also used the home buyer's plan to withdraw some money from other savings accounts. They have an insured mortgage, and it's really, I have to say, very heartwarming for me to meet a couple, to meet a family that is taking advantage of some of the programs we've put in place to buy their first home.
This is it, folks. All you have to do is have a PhD stem cell researcher and a civil engineer, and then you can together you can get your first home in Canada. This is such a bad look. Sounds like typical working class family. So these people obviously just came to Canada. They have 3 kids. But I mean, this is not going to be typical for Canadians. Next up, we got this propaganda garbage. Pierre Poilievre's antics are making Parliament miserable for everyone. Give us a break. This is just preposterous. The government doesn't want to hand over documents to the RCMP. Then the Toronto Star keeps running this bullcrap. I'm so sick of the paid off media. I'm seeing so much of it recently, especially with the BC election. It's just started now. You can do the pre-voting in British Columbia right now, and it's going for the next week and a half. BC NDP are running so many ads, and there's so much propaganda on local news here. It is quite frustrating because it's clear they're making a difference a bit in the poll. At least some of the recent poll numbers showed them a couple points ahead because of all of this. Got this story here out of Ottawa. It says aging fleet of buses, e-bus challenges push Ottawa back to diesel. So what ended up happening here, the city of Ottawa has 748 buses they run. They bought a whole bunch of buses. They're expecting 74 electric buses. They're already supposed to be delivered last year. They only have 4 right now. And now they're like, oh crap, these suppliers of these buses, they can't supply these buses. They actually ordered 450 total. They were supposed to get 74 last year. They got 4. And now they're like, it's time to go back and buy some diesel buses. So right now it says they're looking to purchase 40 or 50 diesel buses. I mean, this is what happens when you go all in on something that's new tech. Like you have to slowly go into this stuff as a government. You can't just go all in when it's not proven technology yet. We got this posted by Economic Woes. So we've got small business optimism index sales changes. See all the small businesses closing down at lightning speeds now? Some plazas are starting to look like a scene out of The Walking Dead. And as you can see here, that is quite a significant drop. And this here, just for context, is the world event. This is not far off from the world event when everything shut down. Rate of decline is astounding. Small city Ontario, 75 to 150,000 now have multiple zombie villages. There's one across the street. I mean, where I live here in BC, there's zombie villages all over the place. 50,000 shut down alone in June. So what you're about to see here is the Liberals having a full meltdown. It's Nate Erskine-Smith, the guy who did that that podcast with Justin Trudeau, it was last week sometime. He has a full-blown meltdown and just starts swearing. So just as a warning here, I'm not going to remove the swears.
We had a witness here, the former Liberal minister in charge of the Liberal Green Slush Fund, Navdeep Bains, who basically gave one answer to every question, no matter what the question was last night. It didn't matter what the question was, the answer was the same, and the answer was it was a fair and open process of appointments. And he did the same, didn't matter whether it was coming from Conservative Bloc or the NDP. His answer was the same, regardless of the question. He didn't answer about the hiring practices of former SDTC at CIBC where he worked. He didn't answer the questions about the phone calls that the chair of the Green Slush Fund, Annette Besharon, who he appointed, made to her, whose companies received 25% of the billion-dollar Green Slush Fund money, received over $100 million while she was on the board. He didn't remember any of that. In fact, he couldn't even remember appointing anyone. He just said, I made 100 appointments.
Point of order, point of clarification.
Now,
just one second.
There's no such thing as a point of clarification.
Yeah, sorry, I heard point of order first, so I'll go ahead, Mr. Smith.
Yeah, just perhaps a point of clarification. I'm a bit confused. On the one hand, Mr. Perkins has said he didn't answer questions.
Order.
On the other hand,
come on.
I'm confused.
So this is Liberal Nathan Erskine Smith. He's just doing a bunch of garbage as usual, trying to break up the train of thought, break the flow. That's what they do.
I'm confused. He says he didn't answer the questions, and then he says he didn't recall and answer the questions.
Okay.
Which is it? He said he didn't recall, or he didn't answer. Which is it?
You're next on the list. You'll be able to...
Well, maybe he could get his story straight.
Get back to reviewing your dictionary.
We're wasting our time.
Well,
get his story straight. Hey, Rick, get your story straight.
Liberals, particularly Mr. Erskine Smith, who's a newbie on this committee, haven't done their homework, haven't read the documents, haven't looked at the spreadsheet from the Green Slush Fund of all the grants they made over the 20 years. I'm not surprised that he hasn't made the effort to do that. He's too busy interviewing the current finance minister, conflict carbon tax Carney, to do his homework on this committee. He's too.
Just to note, he just did on his podcast, he interviewed Mark Carney. I don't know if that episode's out yet. It probably will be out soon.
Busy promoting his podcast with the soon-to-be former prime minister and trying to rescue his career than doing his parliamentary work on this committee, which is to actually read documents other than the PMO speaking points that he's given that deal with the issue of the corruption of the $400 million of stolen money by Liberal appointees. I thought Mr. Erskine Smith had more integrity than that, than to not be worried about $400
Point of order.
million
Like, what is this absolute bullshit? This is absolute bullshit.
Whoa.
Come on.
Okay,
come on,
all right.
Come on. My integrity?
Okay.
Right off.
Okay. All right. Mr. Perkins, I'm going to ask you to get back on topic.
Again.
I'm going to ask Mr. Erskine Smith. I understand your irritation. First of all, your language. I'm going to ask you to retract your language.
I'll retract when he retracts. He impugned my integrity, deeply unparliamentary. All right, and we can both retract, Chair.
Mr. Erskine Smith, well, I'm talking about your curse words, not what you actually said. We all can see that when we interrupt a member, everyone gets wound up. Let's just let everyone have their share of their time, and you're welcome to respond to it in your time. Mr. Erskine Smith, I'm not going to press it with you, but I will ask you to use parliamentary language and not curse in a committee setting.
I will stay on topic. Witness testimony, such as Annette Besharon, that said, which obviously MP Erskine Smith hasn't read, said that she never applied, she said it 3 times, for a single job in her life, including this job. Yes, conveniently afterwards, she filled out the application after the minister called her twice to ask her to do the job. After Minister Baines refused to answer the question, even those phone calls or the content, perhaps MP Erskine Smith could do some of that reading. Perhaps he could also do some reading about Andre-Lise Mateau, whose companies got more than $100 million of Green Slush Fund money while she was on board.
A much shorter version of this clip was shared on X, but it didn't give context of how that heated up. So let's jump over here. I just want to look at what people's comments are to that. That's Nate Erskine Smith, the Liberal Party's Hamas spokesman, having a meltdown because his alleged integrity was challenged. The Trudeau Liberals are in free fall. Oh, someone posted a photo here. Here's him interviewing carbon tax Carney. I'll put this on the channel when this is up. Oh, the Liberals showing their true colors. When cornered, they lash out. Guess they can't handle the crumbling foundations of their ideology. Keep watching. The unraveling is just beginning. Next up, we got this here. This is one of the propaganda news, City News. BC Coroner Services says there's no record of recent drug toxicity death at Vancouver intersection where BC Conservative John Rustad said he saw a man die on the way to a televised election debate. This is just preposterous. All these guys are running this propaganda. I've got friends who are paramedics who quite literally tell me that they're picking up bodies all the time. And now you got BC Coroner's Office. David Eby probably made a phone call there and said, hey, we need a little bit of election support. Can you put out some report? So what ends up happening, a lot of these people, because I used to live 2 blocks from Main and Hastings. I used to see this stuff all the time. These guys look like they're dead. They're out cold. They look like they're not breathing, but often paramedics get there. They check them. They have to check for a pulse to even see if they're alive. That's how close to being dead they are. This is not far-fetched for John Rustad to look down and like, whoa, that guy's out. He's gone. But of course, David Eby and the media here, because he has the media under his thumb, are spinning this to make him look bad. It's so slimy. David Eby is a disgrace to this province. He's quite literally caused this problem, and now he's trying to make John Rustad look bad with it. It's just gross, right? If you scroll down the comments section, I like that the people keep the government accountable and point out the real truth here. Like, look at this. Ask the coroner's office about these. Another body on the street of Thurlow and Nelson, October 3rd, 2024. This is quite literally a week ago. That's what's great about X. You can't pull the wool over people's eyes. There's no hiding from it. Here's another one here. This is what I saw last night before the debate. So this looks like somebody's long gone, but maybe their just pulse was so low it looked like they're dead. Because you see it all the time. I mean, I lived right down here. I know these streets. I used to work 2 blocks from here. I like people are sending this stuff in just to fact check the corrupt media. We've also got this one that says, did Rustad make up the story? We've got a whole bunch of people running this story. Did Rustad make up the story at the end when we watched someone die on the way to the debate? All these losers supporting this corrupt government. And I just want to show this one here. The Vancouver Sun also ran this story, corrupt garbage media, if they actually went and did some actual journalism for once in their life instead of just being paid off losers. Bodies everywhere, dead or alive, NDP, exactly. Exactly. When you walk past these people, you don't know. And often the only thing that gets these people back to life is a Narcan shot and flushes the fennel out of their system. We've also got this one here. It says dozens may have walked past a dead person in Victoria Park. No foul play suspected. The passerbys who found the man had believed that he'd been there for some time. We've got quite literally dead people all over the streets here in different cities. This is in Victoria, not in Vancouver. Because of David Eby's policies, why do people support this guy? With that, we're jumping over the house here. So another major problem, we've got Salmon. This is a branch of Hamas, organizes the events in Canada, the protest events. They're in downtown Vancouver. I'm sure most of you have seen it, calling death to Canada. Well, they're arguing about it here in the House Commons today.
After 9 years of this Liberal Prime Minister, Canada has experienced a shocking rise in anti-Semitism and an increase in hate crimes of 165%. His divisive politics, where he pits one group of Canadians against another, only makes matters worse. It also doesn't help that he takes years to list terrorist groups to the list of banned organizations, allowing them to fundraise and recruit here in Canada. This one should be easy, though. The Houthis are attacking civilian ships and innocent civilians. Our allies have already banned them. So will the government do the right thing and list this group as a terrorist organization today?
Mr. Speaker, we unequivocally condemn the acts we saw in Vancouver that were launched by Simieritsch. Acts like burning the flag, chanting death to Canada, acts like denying the events of October 7th and celebrating terrorism are unacceptable in this country. With respect to Simieritsch, we heard the Minister of Public Safety reference this yesterday. We've asked for an expedited review because decisions of this importance are always made on the advice of national security agencies.
What I don't understand is why is he the only Liberal that can say that? This is the proper response. I got no argument against what he said there. I got argument against the fact that they keep protecting these people and they don't get them off the streets doing this to us and doing this to our nation. But why is it Arif Virani is the only one, I guess Justin Trudeau has cleared to make this response? Anthony Housefather actually makes statements too in support of Israel, but they like to play both sides. It's like they've picked a couple that you're allowed to support Israel and you're allowed to support Palestine. You know, it's what Pierre Poilievre keeps calling out. They have supporters of both sides. They don't actually pick a position. So going back here, just so we don't forget, this is Salmon. This is the Hamas Hezbollah members. Let's not call them supporters. You're either a member or you're not. Yeah, even though this is happening in BC's biggest city, in Vancouver, in downtown, David Eby doesn't even want to come out and talk about this, a quick tweet saying, yeah, I condemn that. Let's move on. We don't want to be talking about that.
Death to Canada! Death to the United States! And death to Israel! We are Hezbollah and we are Hamas!
Careful who you vote for, folks. Oh, and what's this? Oh, it's David Eby sitting with Salmon affiliated Vancouver T-word person who incited Catholic church burnings, glorified Hamas, and occupied police stations. You can't make this stuff up, folks. What is going on with David Eby's hair? We've gone beyond bowl cut here. Horseshoe called, says it didn't realize it could be a haircut. Careful who you vote for, folks. Eby needs to apologize for supporting such bigoted behavior. Conservatives are running a pretty scathing ad here. I'm glad they are.
Death to Canada! Death to the United States! And death to Israel! Death to Canada!
Yeah, well, we can't play the whole ad, but I mean, my grandfather survived in concentration camp, broke free of the gates, was running with other people escaping who were getting mowed down by machine guns. He fled to Canada, started a farm in Manitoba, and became a patriotic Canadian. If he were alive today, he would be absolutely appalled at this garbage. And speaking of garbage, we've got this here. Uh-oh, what's this? This is the BC NDP doing some dirty dealings with hotel sales. So what we've got here is 3 properties. Up here you can see Ravi Kahlon. This is the housing minister for British Columbia. He bought 3 hotels in Prince George as a solution for housing. And guess what? He bought them all from the same guy, Tapinder Banapal. So Tapinder went and bought 3 properties here. 15 months earlier, he sold all of these to the government, just a year and a half later. Let's look at the sales here. So Tapinder bought this one for $700,000. He bought this one for $1.1 million and this one for $3.25 million. He sold them then to Ravi Kahlon, the government house minister, this one for $2 million, making $1.3 million profit in a little over a year. He sold this one for $4.1 million, making $3 million profit in just over a year. And he sold this one to the government for $10.5 million, making $7 million in just over a year. If this isn't government corruption, I don't know what is. The BC NDP are a bunch of lying, money laundering, corrupt thieves. And you know who actually brought this up? Here's an article that shows it. Here's one of the first one. This is the $700,000 hotel that he sold for $2 million just a year later. You know who was actually diving into this and brought this up in Parliament? John Rustad. That's right, folks. John Rustad brought this up. It doesn't pass the smell test, in my opinion, Rustad said on the last day of the spring legislative session. Something is going on here. That's why I called for a forensic audit. John Rustad is trying to stop this corruption in the BC NDP government with Ravi Kahlon here, the housing minister, selling these properties to these guys. Who are these guys? His buddies? I don't know. What you can see, though, is that they used to be called Mundi North Enterprises, and then they changed their name to CAMPG Holdings. You can see Tapinder Banapal, and here, Tapinder Banapal. This is not coincidence. Either Ravi gave this guy, his buddy, likely a heads up, hey, we're going to be buying hotels. Buy them now, wait a year, sell them back to us for double or triple the price. That's what it seems like. You've got to wonder if Honorable Ravi Kahlon here had any sort of skin in the game. Does he get a kickback? What's the connection there? Is this your good buddy? Is this a high school friend? I was looking it up. I can't find it. But I mean, buying 3 properties from the same people just a year and a half later, something stinks here badly. That's why John Rustad brought this up. Next up, we got Christia Freeland making a fool of herself again. Says the Liberals are trapped by their corruption. The only way out is to release the incriminating documents and face the consequences. They're not going to do that.
I think Canadians do not like their parliament being made into a spectacle.
Christia Freeland, she's about to tap again there. She's like tapping. She is not comfortable. She just tapped 7 times in the matter of what are we at here? 8 seconds. This is someone who's feeling trapped. They're feeling quite literally trapped, and they're trying to exert some energy outwards. That's what this is. She feels stuck, and she knows she's stuck because there's some sort of corruption they're hiding.
I think Canadians do not like Parliament behaving in a way that, as a mother, I would consider totally unacceptable if my kids told me that was happening in the playground or the gym at school. It is just, it's not okay. We have serious disagreements in Parliament, and everyone here is prepared to debate the issues seriously and reasonably. And I am prepared, I think reasonable people can disagree with the specific policies we put forward. And I am happy, and all of us are happy to debate them on the merits of each of our policies. But what we're seeing the Conservatives try to do to our House of Commons, turn it into a place where the currency is not real debate. The currency is nursery school insults, and the currency is dilatory emotions. I think that really cheapens our country and cheapens our democracy.
You know what? It comes from the top down. It comes from Justin Trudeau. That's how he talks in there. He's making accusations. And a side note there, she tapped 22 times doing that. She feels trapped. There's something going on there. The average person doesn't talk like that. They're not whack, 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 whack as they're talking. She doesn't know how to handle it. And it really leads me to believe that she has something to do with this. She's been awfully quiet recently. It's like they've kind of pulled her back. They pulled Randy Balson out back. They sent him over to Jasper to just hide over there. I mean, the first 1 second here says it all. Moving on. Next up, we've got these friendly characters again blocking the University of Ottawa staff from getting to work. And the police are just rerouting them. Like, come on, jail time. Okay, we're not going to listen to that garbage, but you can see here. Like, why are we bowing to these criminals taking over our country? This is so stupid. Deal with the issue. My 20-year-old daughter was harassed by these protesters, very scared and shaken up. This has to stop. I saw footage of a mother and 2 kids walking down the street, and they had to jump into a park and run from them because they were being terrorized by these people. I wonder if they're the same clowns who misspelled Palestine on the steps of University a while back. Got this one here. They're spraying messages in parking lots. There's only one solution. Escalate till revolution. Remember I shared a story just a couple days ago about people fishing salmon and during the salmon run. Well, they've been caught. They've been busted here, salmon poachers in Bowmanville, Ontario. Conservation officers here. Big fish. Those are big fish going to spawn. Not anymore. We've got Canadian immigration lawyer stops practicing after she discovers how sleazy and corrupt the whole system is.
Do you want to know how much money people are paying to come to Canada in the startup visa program ever since the quota has been introduced? I have a group of clients who had a signed contract with an established incubator for $40,000, and the money arrived and the contract was signed, and after the government introduced the rule, the CEO of the incubator called me and told me because there's fewer commitment certificates, the price has now gone up. And he said that he's planning to charge around $500,000 for a commitment certificate for the startup visa program. And this is a guy whose incubation program, it's literally like an online, like self-guided program. So I'm out here with the chickens because I really can't bear to practice immigration law anymore.
100% of Indian immigration consultants are corrupt. I've seen a lot of that, actually, to confirm that. Next up, we've got a group of residents in Cambridge, Ontario, teamed up to recover their stolen property from people in this homeless encampment. Just look at all the bikes and gear they've taken. So this is pretty wild. Like, you just find everything here. I think they actually came to look for their bikes, or their kids' bikes, and they came across all this stuff. So I'm just going to click through here. So they got motorbikes and all sorts of stuff, but they do find an area that has all the bikes. There's generators, just a mess. So they come over here and there's a tarp.
Yeah, we're here looking for it. Yeah. You know, children pay a lot of money for bikes and people fucking steal them. Unreal.
So she comes over here and this is where she finds all the bikes.
Oh, look at all the bikes in here. Look at all this.
That's crazy. There's like 15 bikes in there, at least. I mean, this is creating a new problem here in Canada. Justin Trudeau has just made things so bad. There's all sorts of weird corruption and sleazy scandals and things happening in Canada because of the housing crisis, how expensive things are, and now we have new levels of theft and crime. It's just new problems that we couldn't even fathom 9 years ago. That Milwaukee pack is worth over $1,000. I see homeless people with them here in Victoria too. Something's got to be done. Yeah, these standing units are really expensive.
There's been another blow to the Prime Minister's carbon tax scheme. A new report from the Parliamentary Budget Officer shows yet again that Canadians are worse off under this tax. Here's what the total bill will be when the NDP Liberals finish quadrupling this tax. It'll cost people in Ontario $1,400, $1,500 in Newfoundland, and a whopping $2,000 in Saskatchewan. Canadians are already struggling with higher costs, higher groceries, and higher mortgage rates. The last thing they need is another bill from a useless carbon tax. If the government's so sure that Canadians support the tax, why not let the people decide in a carbon tax election?
Mr. Speaker, let me read you the first paragraph of the PBO's report. And I quote, considering only the fiscal impact of federal fuel charge, PBO estimates that average household in each of the backstop provinces in 2030-31 will see a net gain, receiving more from the Canada Carbon Rebate than the total amount they pay in federal fuel charge and related GST, Mr. Speaker. The Leader of the Opposition should apologize to Canadians for misleading them all these months.
Reading some piece of paper doesn't mean anything, Guibo. This is just stupid. Basic math will tell you if a third of Canadians, we're talking British Columbia, Quebec, Yukon, and then a couple other ones, don't get the carbon tax, then it doesn't matter if 8 out of 10 Canadians in those jurisdictions do, it's still less than half Canadians who actually get that rebate. And after I did the math on my channel here, it was like 20% of Canadians actually get a rebate, because it's 6 out of 10 Canadians who are worse off with the carbon tax in those jurisdictions. Every Canadian outside of those jurisdictions doesn't get a rebate, including here in BC. David Eby takes our tax dollars and then runs a huge deficit. What is he doing with all of our money here? We had $9 billion deficit here this last year in BC, and he just wants to keep cranking that up, cranking up the drugs in the street. It's ridiculous. Our country's run by boneheads.
The minister might want to read the rest of the report, because in the quote he cited, he focused on a very key word: only the direct costs. When you factor in all the economic costs, it costs the Canadian household $1,400. Canadians are net losers under this carbon tax scheme, and this minister knows it. Right. So, if he's so sure that Canadians want this government to keep quadrupling the tax, why not let the people decide in a carbon tax election?
We all know the reason why is because they have a bunch of corruption and scandal they're trying to hide. They've been laundering money. They've been doing all sorts of dirty dealings. Like I just showed you guys, that's what they're hiding. That's what they want to keep perpetrating. It's all about money and power to them.
Let me read you another paragraph from the report, Mr. Speaker. Moreover, in 2030-31, for all backstop provinces, we estimate that the average household in each income quintile will see a net gain, except for average household in the highest income quintile, Mr. Speaker. You know what the Leader of the Opposition is doing? He wants to take money away from the middle class and poorer Canadians to protect his rich CEO friends. That's what he's doing, Mr. Speaker.
Justin Trudeau has quite literally been funding his rich CEO friends since he got into power. Look at McKinsey, his buddies there, $220 million, funneling dirty contracts which we get nothing for. That's quite literally just shoveling our cash from our government bank account to McKinsey with nothing in return. Sure, they'll say they showed up and they did some consulting. The consulting they do is all dog crap, and we know it.
The minister is trying very hard to get Canadians not to understand the details, but the details are, and the facts are, that the Parliamentary Budget Officer confirmed what Canadians already know. They're being robbed by a carbon tax, which is driving up the cost of groceries, of gas, and everyday essentials. In fact, a family in Prince Edward Island will pay almost $1,200 a year when the NDP Liberals quadruple the carbon tax. Canadians don't support the carbon tax. We know 10 provinces don't support the carbon tax. Will the Prime Minister listen to Canadians and call a carbon tax election?
The member talks about the agricultural sector. Well, let's talk about the climate impacts on the agricultural sector, Mr. Speaker. Droughts in 2021 resulted in 27% decline in Canada's grain production. Over the last decade, over 200 Canadian farmers have experienced cost increases and revenue loss from climate impacts, Mr. Speaker. This member and this party never talks about the impacts of climate change on farmers, on the price of food in Canada. They want to try and make us believe that climate change isn't happening. It is happening, and on this side of the House, we're here for Canadians, Mr. Speaker.
Okay, let's just go with your argument there, Guibo. Climate change is happening. Then why aren't you trying your absolute best to send as much LNG to China to displace the amount of coal they use? I've already shown that math. 11.2% is the amount of coal that we would have to reduce that China uses with Canadian LNG to make Canada carbon neutral. That should be priority number one. He's full of crap, and he knows it.
The minister is either living in denial or purposely misleading Canadians, because the Parliamentary Budget Officer's report is clear. It costs Canadians more to pay the carbon tax than what they get back in rebates. But if the minister doesn't believe me, I would encourage him to read the Parliamentary Budget Report. But in the essence of time, let me help out. Page 19 states Canadians are worse off paying the carbon tax, period. That is the fact. But again, if the minister is so confident that Canadians support this carbon tax, why are they so afraid to call a carbon tax election?
Member points to indirect costs. Mr. Speaker, let's talk about indirect costs. Loss of revenue of $150 million in 2023 due to flooded in farmlands across this country, Mr. Speaker. The dairy farmers, egg farmers of Canada, grain growers, Canal Council all support our plan to fight climate change. It's time for the Conservative Party of Canada to come on board, Mr. Speaker.
I'm surprised he hasn't stood up there and said Hurricane Milton could have been stopped if we had paid more taxes. This man has completely lost his mind. This is what happens when you get an environmental activist running the environmental department of Canada. You get an absolute joke. More and more problems in our country here. Justin Trudeau just jet setting off to Laos. Get away from all of it. With reports coming from Christia Freeland that there's no prorogation. I don't really buy it, but you never know. I mean, if it gets too hot in the kitchen there, Justin Trudeau will clean the slate. With Senate voting on pharmacare today, we'll find out here in the next few days, maybe by next week sometime, if Justin Trudeau is going to prorogate, or is he just going to keep doubling down on that they had nothing to do with any of those $400 million taken, the 186 conflicts of interest, SDTC scandal, any of that. But they can't get government back up and running unless they deal with that, and they don't want to because clearly there's something in there. And with BC now going to the polls starting today for the next week and a half or so, we'll see how the people here vote. It's been very Liberal and NDP here for a while, so the fact that the Conservatives are even in the running now, which is shocking, but a lot of people are moving over from the Green Party and the NDP because David Eby is just so corrupt how he's running the place. I just showed his housing minister, those clearly dirty deals going on. This is just another thing that hurts Justin Trudeau, considering the Liberal Party in BC dissolved itself and merged with the Conservatives. The real question is, does Justin Trudeau really think he can come back from all of this?